Hi guys, it's Sarah Elizabeth. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about a whole lot of life and a whole lot of Jesus. Today, I just have a little message for my younger girlies out there who may struggle with the idea of being the good girl. Today, I'm gonna serve as your YouTube big sis. Let's talk about it. So it's been quite some time since I've been in high school and even college, and I don't necessarily know all of the things that happen nowadays. I know in my day, when I was in my day, my goodness, that makes me sound so old. Back in my day, So back in my day, when I was in high school and when I was in college, it was not necessarily cool to be the good girl. It wasn't cool to be the girl who didn't really date a lot, or wasn't in a relationship, or really wasn't being fast, and it wasn't cool to be prudent. I know I was called a prude because I was not interested really in the majority of the guys that I went to high school with. I'm talking about in high school, and not in college. I wasn't called a prude in college, but in high school I was called a prude because I was focused. I did not go to parties. In fact, I never even knew where the parties were. I was not involved. I was so out of the loop when it came to those kinds of things. I was not experimenting with any drugs or alcohol or anything. I just didn't have a desire for any of that. And I was that good girl who did all things right, essentially. Now, I did make mistakes, but what I didn't do is I didn't make detrimental mistakes. I know in a past video I talked about supervised mistakes, which, yeah, I made supervised mistakes. Even the mistakes that I made when I was not in the presence of my mother, those were mistakes that I weighed. I was like, okay, I know that this could get me in trouble, but if I don't get caught though. Now, I am not encouraging you to go and get into trouble just as long as you don't get caught. What I mean is the mistakes that I made, I knew would not have permanent consequences. I know in high school, so many people are for the first time experimenting with sex and alcohol and drugs and all of the things. And it can be super tempting to want to try them because you want to be cool, you want to fit in, you don't want to kill the vibe and all of that. But honey, you've got goals, okay? You've got dreams, you've got responsibilities, and you are going somewhere. There was this event that I went to, and they were like chanting, if you don't like the odds, then don't have sex. That's another topic for another time, but I'm only using that as an example because sex outside of wedlock could lead to a child out of wedlock, which could lead to you being a single parent, which could lead to your opportunities being limited in a variety of areas of life. That's just one example, but there's so many other consequences that come with that, particularly like STDs or STIs, or just the emotional turmoil that comes along with that and the soul ties. But that's just one of the many mistakes that could have permanent consequences. If you drink and drive, you could lose your life. If you don't lose your life, you could take someone else's. You could get into an accident that leaves you paralyzed. The negative results or possibilities are endless. You don't want to chance it. You may be young and you may think that you have all of this time and nothing bad is going to happen to you. You feel like you're basically invincible when you're young. But so many people have lost their lives or found themselves reaping permanent consequences from temporary decisions that they didn't have to make, but they thought that they could make because they had all of this time and they're so young and they want to experience life. If you want to experience life, go travel. Go be a missionary overseas, or go study abroad. Learn another language. Go on vacation. Take a break. Do what you have to do. You can experience life without introducing baggage to your life. You don't have to know what it feels like to get sloppy drunk. I know it may not be fun being called the good girl, the goody two-shoes. Being the good girl can be associated with being the boring girl. It can be associated with being a nerd or a prude or all the derogatory terms that they want to call those who are actually walking in the right direction and actually doing the right thing. All of those things, sex before marriage, alcohol and drugs, those bring baggage. Those bring emotional turmoil. Those bring soul ties. Those bring addiction. Those bring extra issues that you don't have to have. On top of life already being hard. I remember high school. It wasn't easy being a high school student. There's so much going on. You're finally gaining some independence where you have to balance school, your relationships with your friends. If you're finally starting to date, then you have to balance that too. Your grades, sports, your family, so much. There's so much to think about and it can be overwhelming. And you also want to try new things. Try sushi. I am a full-blown vegan, but I would say try some raw fish before you go and try all that drugs and weed and all that nasty stuff. What I'm saying is I understand that it can be very tempting to try these things. They're not going to benefit your life. Some things you don't have to try. Some things you don't have to experience. And when you don't experience those things, what you also don't experience is the baggage that comes along with it. What you don't experience is the possible STD or STI. What you don't experience is a child out of wedlock. What you don't experience is a messed up brain and thought process because now you need that grade to be able to focus. What you don't experience is the anxiety because you found yourself in a compromising situation. What you don't experience is your grades failing because you're missing class and now you're anxious because you may lose your scholarship and not get accepted into college. You create more trials for yourself. You make life harder for yourself when you don't have to. Sure, temporarily you may feel cool, but the thing is you're not invincible. What if you get a bad batch of that green stuff and then you have permanent brain damage? Or worse, lose your life? What if you wanted to know what it was like to get drunk and so you drink so much that you get alcohol poisoning and you can't recover? It's not worth it. You can find fun in other things, and it's okay to be the oddball out because you have a higher calling. You're doing things, you're going places, and that's not going to serve you in your future. You don't want to create bad habits that you're then going to have to break, and it's going to be so much harder to break them than had you never started in the first place. There were a lot of experiences I did not have when I was young, and I'm so glad I didn't. Because I saved myself from a lot of emotional turmoil, soul ties, and potential diseases. When God instructs us to stay away from certain things, it is not because He is trying to kill the vibe, okay? It is not because He doesn't want us to have fun. What it is it's His protection. Because He knows there are consequences to our actions. And so if we act out of order, then things happen out of order. And there are consequences, and sometimes the consequences are irreversible. And no one is exempt. Just because you're young doesn't mean that your consequences will be reversible. Sometimes they're not. Bad decisions are not respecters of person. They're not respecters of age. No one is exempt from a permanent consequence. Right now, even though it may seem kind of annoying or not cool to be considered the good girl, consider it a compliment. And even though the bad girls or cool girls or whatever you call them may seem to get all the guys and they may seem to have more fun, those things that they're doing that qualify them as the cool girls or the baddies or whatever they may be is more than likely not going to serve them well in their future. If you are walking in the straight and narrow, if you are making good decisions, the boring decisions, if you are maintaining your innocence and your purity, be proud of that. Know that that's your power. And you know what? Later on in life, it's going to serve you. I guarantee you, it's going to serve you. You don't want permanent consequences for temporary decisions. So continue making good choices. Continue focusing on what actually matters. Stay prayed up. Keep company that is like you. So have friends that are also committed to being the good girls, and you guys can be the good girl crew, okay? And just know that there are people who are watching you and applauding you for doing what's right. Even when you are surrounded by so many people who are on the same path as you, they're going to have a different story to tell. Not saying that their lives may not end up being decent, but just know that you'll never go wrong by doing the right thing. Not saying that you're going to get everything that you want and everything is going to be bliss because you made the right decision, because God reigns on the just and the unjust. But just know that you will never be in the wrong doing things God's way, but you will always be in the wrong doing things the world's way. And even when it may seem like the consequences aren't that severe, if God said it, you have an obligation to do that. So stay pure, stay vigilant, stay prayed up, and stay strong and stand firm in your beliefs. I am proud to say that I was the good girl. I still am the good girl. And though back then it was just kind of lonely, it paid off. And here I am in my 30s, so glad that I didn't experience those things, so that I don't go into relationships or friendships with baggage or soul ties. So be the good girl. I promise you, it'll benefit you later. From one good girl to another. Enjoy not having a lot of baggage. Enjoy not having soul ties. Enjoy the freedom that comes from being that girl. As always, Sarah Elizabeth.